Hello, and welcome to another episode of Virtual Legality. I'm your host, Richard Hoeg, managing member of the Hoeg Law business law firm of Northville, Michigan. And today, after doing very, very in-depth videos of almost an hour in length for the first couple of days this week, where we talked about important things like statutory codes and how they want to change various liability shields with respect to the internet, and then yesterday, a very in-depth discussion of what was a well-done video by a famous YouTuber by the name of Tom Scott out in the United Kingdom, I wanted to take it down a notch just a little bit. If you're anything like me and you are in one of these states in the United States that has a lockdown order placed upon it, you are in quarantine, and there's a lot of weirdness that goes around with that. But one thing has been a bright light, at least in the Hoeg house, during that time, and that has been Nintendo's release of Animal Crossing. We love this game. My entire family has been enjoying it now since it released last Friday. Who doesn't want to see things like campgrounds and colorful characters and apple trees and all this great stuff when you're otherwise stuck in quarantine, right? Don't we all want to have a little bit of interaction that is at least pretending to be outside? Look at all those other people that are within 6 feet of each other. Animal Crossing has been, at least for us, the tonic that we needed to really kind of survive and deal with a lot of the things that we are dealing with right now. But when I say who else wouldn't want Animal Crossing, apparently it's a lot of people, right? Contagion, The Stand, Outbreak, all these other movies and TV shows are very, very popular on the streaming services that I follow, and it's just very amusing to me. I understand wanting to be thematic. I understand wanting to watch Halloween movies in October and Christmas movies in December. I respect that people apparently want to watch infection movies right now, but I'm not one of them. So I've been sticking with Animal Crossing. We've been enjoying our time. We have loved this since we've gotten it, but one thing has been nagging at me. So I start my workday. I've got the kids here. They're all having school closed, so they're all with us, and we start talking about Animal Crossing. We get our Tom Nook announcement, and I was seeing on my streams and on my Twitter feeds and things along those lines that people were advancing their islands in ways that I couldn't understand because we were putting in good time, but we weren't advancing in the same way that these other folks were, whether that was building a museum or building a store. And as it turns out, Nintendo has done something very, very, very silly. Now, if you follow the video game scene at all, you know that one of the big things that Nintendo announced or revealed earlier this year was that you would only get one island per Switch console that you played this game on. And Animal Crossing is a very chill experience. You walk around, you pick up shells from the beach, you chop a little wood off the trees, and you hopefully make things to make your house cooler, make it look better, and advance the island so that new people come in and live there, and you build these museums and these stores and things along those lines. But that wasn't happening on my island. And so I took a look at how this was going down, and I came to the understanding that my daughter, my wonderful 8-year-old daughter, who was so excited about this game for the last couple of months that we would sit back and we would watch YouTube videos of the Nintendo Direct that had the big breakdown about a month ago, and I think it was late February, and we would look at what people were saying about their Let's Plays and early reviews and things along these lines. She was so excited that when it came out last Friday, we of course said, yes, definitely, you should get to play it first. And she did, and she had a great time, and they spent with her sister all day doing things on the island. But what I didn't know was that the designation, just by virtue of being the first player to play a copy of Animal Crossing on your given Switch system, gives you all the power and has all of the advancement of the island go through you. So I've titled in the thumbnail here, "Don't let your kids play first." It seems like an odd thing for Nintendo to be espousing, but it is what Nintendo is espousing, because if you've got kids, if you've got people that aren't necessarily going to be focused on making your island better, and you really want to have it be focused on that, you're not going to be able to, at least not with your character, without kind of swapping bodies and playing with someone else's account, advance your island in the way that you want to. And more problematically for a parent, especially a parent of a child that's very kind of independent and does her own thing, is that they might not ever tell you that they have been given what amounts to a quest to build the store, and it requires all of these things. And yeah, I can help contribute those by leaving the things that she needs on her front lawn, but not if I don't know that the request existed. And so what you've got is a situation right now where whoever was the first person to play this game controls the entire experience for everybody else, and the rest of the players completely opaquely are secondary citizens on this island that you have in this game, Animal Crossing. And when I say opaquely, Nintendo doesn't ever mention to you as the second player that you are not special, that you can't advance your island. You just go and you move in and everything seems normal. You have your kind of normal home loan. You have your normal kind of experience with all the stuff that you are used to experiencing in Animal Crossing, except that the first player, who I walked away from last Friday because I had some work to do, got all this extra information. Got all these extra quests, got all these extra directives that you might not ever hear about if your daughter doesn't want to tell you about them. So let's take a look at some of the articles and coverage of this. I'm viewing this essentially as a public service announcement because it came as such a surprise to me. And as someone that is regularly ensconced in the video game community, had watched, I believe, every Nintendo video that they released prior to the release of this game, didn't know about until effectively this morning. It says Animal Crossing New Horizons owners are surprised to find island progress tied to first resident Leaf It Out. By now, it should be common knowledge Animal Crossing New Horizons only features one island per Nintendo Switch console. As much as I might disagree with that decision, that is common knowledge. Nintendo filtered that out to the folks that were really invested in the project, really excited about the game. We knew about that going in. Multiple users can have their own character, but all inhabit the same shared location. This opens up the possibility of seeing your mutual home flourish when you're not around. Other users can share the load when it comes to daily chores, for example, or leave messages and gifts for you to come back to. It's great. It's been a wonderful family experience during this really, really odd time, especially in the United States. But it also, as players are finding out, results in the situation of the first player who plays, who becomes the game's primary user, then being relied upon to keep the game progressing. Decisions such as where to open and place buildings such as the Island's Museum and Nooks Cranny Shop are the work of the primary player or island representative. I believe it's actually called resident representative, at least the time that my daughter showed it to me. But yeah, it's not just decisions about where to open or place buildings, it's the actual progression loop to get those things built. And because of the way Animal Crossing is made, it is done in a real-time basis. So if you say, okay, we've got a quest now to get this person all of the items that they need to build a shop, you have to get all of them to them, and then once you have instructed them to build it, you have to place the shop, and then it will take another day or two to actually get built. And not game days. It's not Stardew Valley. This won't happen. We wound up building ours this morning. This won't happen until tomorrow in real time. And so if you don't get told about these quests, you just wind up not advancing your island much at all. And like I said, Nintendo didn't make me aware of this, and I am fully cognizant of the fact that I could have missed a memo at some point that Nintendo revealed. I certainly didn't read all these reviews of Animal Crossing because it's not the kind of game that I think that you need reviews for, at least not for me, because I know what Animal Crossing is, and this game has been Animal Crossing-y. But I didn't read those reviews. Maybe some people talked about these things on a more kind of robust basis, but I didn't know about it. And it was only kind of recently that my daughter said, oh yeah, I need 30 pieces of this wood and I need 30 iron nuggets. I was like, what are you talking about? And when I went to talk to the animal that had requested those things, that animal didn't ask me anything extra. Nintendo didn't figure out a way to even communicate to the other players that a quest is going on. Hey, go talk to the resident representative. Might be a nice note from one of these animals, but that's not happening. And it's coming as a surprise to people. Understand that Animal Crossing is a very casual game. It doesn't have combat. It doesn't really have all these outward pressures. That means it is attractive to an entire class of game players that maybe don't play games all the time, that don't follow all this news from Nintendo, that don't watch these videos. And so not only am I surprised who does those things, everybody else is going to be surprised. And if you wound up starting with a different player that was really excited about the game, but maybe isn't going to play it as much as you are, you're just kind of out of luck. It says, this might not seem like a big deal until your first resident happens to be your kid, who will grow tired of it after a month or two. It's not that my children are tired of it. It's that they're not communicating with me about what is the needs that are necessary for the island. Once that was figured out, we were able to drop some things on the lawn and we were able to move forward. It seems like the only workaround is to restart your whole island, which is a bit of a non-starter for a game like this. Animal Crossing is a bit like tending a garden, and you like to see it grow and flourish and change. And if you're restarting it, you kind of lose all of that. The Animal Crossing franchise has frequently kept to the formula of having a single player act as a settlement's primary resident, the mayor or campsite manager. With the game's design formed around all players on a single console sharing a single town, this limitation appears to be Nintendo's workaround. But it's not so much just that the first player gets this special title and that they have all these extra quests. It's not just that. I understand that Nintendo's trying to do something a little bit different with this game. That's not the worst thing in the world. The problem is the communication. When I set my daughter up with this game last week, I had no idea that this was going to be how it was handled. It was never properly communicated as part of her onboarding process, which I did sit through, that she was going to have this special titling and she wasn't going to be able to essentially hand that off to somebody else that might be playing. And so what happened was she got a quest that we didn't know about for a number of days, and just by not knowing about it, we weren't able to advance it because, bless her heart, she's awesome. She's having a great time in Animal Crossing. She isn't necessarily focused on checking these boxes and advancing the island in any specific way. So you get into these situations where Nintendo didn't tell you what the actual powers of that first player turning on and selecting the island is, and then don't actually communicate with the other players that anything else is even happening. That creates a lot of consternation. And we see this isn't the only article that talks about it. This was actually talked about a little bit more in the past couple days. I've got here a WCCF tech article. It says New Horizons account restrictions frustrating many families and couples. Animal Crossing New Horizons is hot right now, kind of crazy hot. The game has smashed Switch sales records in the UK, delivering bigger launch numbers than major franchises like Mario and Pokemon. Reviewers have also been very positive, although we did find there are a lot of 0 out of 10 reviews. So what's going on? Well, it all comes down to a rather frustrating account restriction. As in the past, multiple players can set up a house in the same village, but the first person who registers an account and sets up and names the island is designated the resident representative. So why is that an issue? Because only the resident representative can take on missions to progress and improve the island. Everyone else is restricted to only improving their own house and perhaps sometimes contributing resources to a bigger project. Basically, the way it's set up, there's only one real player who controls the fate of the island, and everyone else is just there for support. Now, if you've got a situation where an adult is playing with a young child, maybe this setup makes sense. Note, maybe it makes sense as long as the adult knew to play the game first. And if the child was excited about that, that probably didn't happen. But it's understandably frustrating if you've got multiple adults in the household who want to contribute equally. There's also scenarios where one half of a couple played the game first and became the resident representative, but didn't end up having much time to play, or, maybe went to a different city or something because we're in lockdown, thus holding their spouse or roommate, sibling, or whatever back. Now, I've put in orange here. This article actually goes on to a little editorializing. It's pretty obvious why this restriction is in place. Nintendo wants to encourage people to buy multiple copies of Animal Crossing for multiple Switches. I don't necessarily think that that is in fact why this restriction is in place, primarily because just looking at the economics of the thing, it's a pretty difficult ask to say, well, if you want to advance your own island, you're going to need another copy of the game and another Switch. That'll only be multiple hundreds of dollars to get that experience. Most people are going to be a hard sell on that particular question. So I suspect there were technological issues that they wanted to address. They wanted to have everybody that had different accounts on a Switch be able to interact on the same island. And to some extent, that works great. Honestly, it's great to have different houses on the same island, be able to hang out in the same location, in a virtual environment with my family, but the communications here, the transparency here, they simply don't exist. Ars Technica did a little bit about it when they were talking about how much they enjoyed their time in Animal Crossing, and I didn't see this article before I bought the game, but they do start covering some of this stuff. It says, hey, before I get down to a listing of little things I liked and disliked, I should get my loudest complaint out of the way. New Horizons kind of stinks as a shared experience for multiple people on the same console. Let's say you plan to buy the game for your entire household and share a single copy with a partner or kids. Like in previous Animal Crossing games, this means all residents become individual characters in a village, and they each get their own house and their own progression track, particularly in paying off Tom Nook's loans for an expanded house. There is no way to create multiple islands on a single console, should people prefer to have a village to themselves. Each new island requires buying an additional copy of the game and an additional Switch, so the game is talking to the Switch in some way to make sure that even if you had a separate copy of the game, you couldn't have a different island, due to the way that Nintendo structured Animal Crossing's save files. Now, maybe that structure is fine by you and your likely Switch sharing posse. Like in older games, this sharing style promotes some cute moments, including the ability to leave surprises on neighbors' virtual front lawns or have the game's non-player characters refer to your real-life friends in conversation. It's adorable, it's wonderful. If so, you should still be warned that only one of your island's residents will be treated as a first-class citizen. And they put here the image. You play a very important role on Mount Caramel as the resident representative. Now, this is in a big old onboarding process. Animal Crossing New Horizons and Nintendo in general has really endeavored to make everybody kind of smoothly transition into Animal Crossing world, and they have a big long tutorial to get that done. This is one section of the description of that, and it's part of a bigger description of things about how you are going to interact with this world. And everybody gets that. They just don't get the talk about how to name the island, what island you initially pick out from the airport, and this little box and discussion about the fact that you are the resident representative. And I know this because I'm very detail oriented. I'm a lawyer. I watched the introduction sequence with my daughter, and all of this flowed right past me that this was anything special, outside of the fact that I knew that I wouldn't be getting to pick the island because the first player had to pick the island and there was only going to be one island per Switch, and because it made sense that they would be picking the name of the island. I didn't believe that there was any reason why some of these big group tasks like building a shop wouldn't be told to everybody else. Say, hey, you just have to donate these 120 items to this person to build a shop. Why is that limited to the first player? Why doesn't that particular animal tell everybody that he needs those objects and everybody can donate to him? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and it creates significant problems, and Nintendo wasn't transparent about it at the start, and they're not transparent about it as you play. Whoever turns the game on is first dubbed the resident representative. Tom Nook immediately puts most of the island's progress on their shoulders. A few early tutorial-like missions, including building the island's first store and welcoming the island's first new additional residents, can only be accessed by this person. Logically, that makes a certain sense, since all players are able to affect the island. Why would Tom Nook ask each player to build the island's first general goods store? But Nintendo didn't come up with alternative island building ventures for each additional resident who moves in, and the first player doesn't have to tell anyone that anything else is going on. Worse, only the resident representative can build some of the biggest updates for each island, from a new series of bridges and incline ramps to sillier customizations like the town's flag and song. If you'd like to contribute to any of this stuff or any of the quirky village building missions, secondary players will have to coordinate in real life with the resident representative. As I said earlier in this video, once we figured out what was necessary, we started dropping items off on my daughter's lawn to deliver to the animal to get the store built. But without knowing that that was even necessary, it's very difficult to even understand what we need to progress the island. It doesn't take away from Animal Crossing's very chill vibe and very enjoyable experience, especially for this really, really strange time. But it does prevent us from fully enjoying it in a way that we seemingly easily could have. How difficult is it to put text boxes in, even if you can't otherwise allow the players to directly donate the items? How difficult is it for the animal that has made this request of the island representative to say, oh, talk to that person in real life? Or even more specifically, we're still waiting on 91 of 120 items. If you want to leave them or send mail to the island representative giving them those items, that might be helpful to the whole island. These are simple changes that don't necessarily make the other players not second-class citizens on the island, but would at least help facilitate the building of the thing. It's a fairly minor complaint for a very nice game and a very enjoyable experience for the entire family, but it's not a limited complaint. See, it says, we've got here a Nintendo supports forum. Can you change who the resident representative is in Animal Crossing New Horizons? Because it's a big deal. My girlfriend started the island as resident representative, but hardly ever plays, so I did not realize until 8 hours into the game that I needed her to play to actually get the museum or anything else in the game to appear. Extremely frustrated with this decision as I paid $60 just to get shafted my entire first day of playing the game, and I have to start all over again. Exact same situation. Same situation. Let my girlfriend play first. Now she doesn't live with me. My sister was super excited to play, so I let her play first. Now I'm stuck. Same exact situation. I wish Nintendo didn't cheap out. That's the thing. I feel like I'm not even playing the full game. And there is some truth to that. It does wind up feeling like you aren't playing the full game that you purchased if you aren't that resident representative. That's without even kind of getting into the transparency issues. Same issue. So frustrating. Currently experiencing this. Signed up with the forums just to ask about this. And we've got 4 pages of stuff like this, right? Nintendo communicated that you only get one island, but they need more transparency. They might even need an extra bubble at the intake process for new users, and this is going to be a very popular game. Animal Crossing is well made. It is already busted out on top of the charts. A number of people are going to continue to buy this game. And so I might make a few patch changes. I would have those additional transparency items. I would also have transparency right at the start. It says, hey, if you're not planning on playing this game as much as another household member, you might want them to be the first person in here because they are going to be operating how the island progresses. Just some more direct context. I know Nintendo likes to be cute. You're only being talked to by raccoons who only talk about things in universe in general. Skip the cuteness for just a little bit so that parents can at least understand what it means to be the first player in this game. And that's my little discussion about what I found to be an inscrutable design decision on the Nintendo side, all in the middle of the game that we really, really enjoy in Hoeg House. And we can't honestly recommend more for especially just needing to do something to feel like you're outside, to be in a community, working with your family on something when you are in this very, very unusual time across the globe. That's been Virtual Legality for today. A little bit of an extra episode. If you like this, we talk about these kinds of things, not specifically Animal Crossing design decisions, but a lot of things with respect to pop culture and video games all the time. As I mentioned earlier in the video, we wound up talking about Tom Scott's discussion of copyright reform. We talked about the Earn It Act and how it's a significant problem by utilizing CDA 230 as a kind of hostage situation. More recently, we'd even talked about Nintendo taking down Mario items off of Sony's Dreams and exactly how copyright infringement works in that context. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please share this channel around. Please share this video around. We love having these conversations with people. Otherwise, like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that other good stuff. If you caught it on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. And if you listened to it in its podcast form, thank you so much for listening. I will catch you on the very next episode of Virtual Legality. Virtual Legality is a YouTube video series with audio podcast versions presented as commentary and for education and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have legal questions about the topics discussed, please consult your own legal counsel.